Hi, everyone. It's your favorite MLB newsbreaker, Bob Nightingale, and you're listening to the Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap. Enjoy the show, and thank God for Jeffrey Springs.
Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap. I am your host, Zang. I'm coming to you SOLO this week here in episode 62 to recap week 19. This is our third to last week of the regular season this year. We've got next week and then the week after that before we hit playoffs. We're coming right down to it. We do have a few more teams officially eliminated from playoff contention this year, so that, of course, is somewhat exciting or sad, depending on where you are feeling. But I have to say, as a even as a non-playoff team last year, I did find quite a bit of joy and fun in kind of watching the grandeur of the playoffs, as it were, for even from afar. So hopefully that is true this year as well for non-playoff teams, but let's get things started. We'll begin with the Arizona Asphalt, who faced off against the Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes. Pardon me, they were our first matchup. Arizona came in at 10-8, Southwest Kansas at 8-10. It's important for Arizona to get a win this week, as they were a game out of the playoffs by record after that unfortunate loss the week before. Luis Garcia and Mickey Moniak got things started off well for the Asphalt, contributing 13 points each to their 50 total on the day, while Michael Busch had 12 for the Coyotes. Liam Hicks drove in 18 and Davis on Tuesday for the Asphalt as they scored 40 in total, holding their lead from the previous day. Davis Martin's minus 15 would put a bit of a blemish on things, made a little bit worse by Cade Povic's 31 on the other side for the Rabid Coyotes. Arizona was spared further damage, though, as Dansby Swanson's 12 points were left on Southwest Kansas's bench. Noah Cameron scored 41 points for the Coyotes on Wednesday as they scored 84 total, and that did give Kansas the lead. They held that through Thursday as well, thanks to 14 from Mauricio Dubon, while over on the other side, Andres Jimenez had 11, Dustin May had 23 in his first start out in Milwaukee. Foster Griffin did not have such a strong first start in Cleveland, recording -1 on the day. On Friday, Arizona would take the lead back from Southwest Kansas, scoring 42 points, 8 each from Eli De La Cruz and Andy Pages, although 10 from Matt McLean were left on the bench. Arizona held their lead through Saturday as well, seeing 22 from Yoshinobu Yamamoto and 23 from Seth Lugo, along with 10 from Ian Happ, while Jake Bennett turned in a rather unusual 7 points for the Rabid Coyotes. It's been so good for them as of late. Got a little bit hit around by the Athletics there. And Arizona would close it out in thunderous style, scoring 130 points to close out the week as they did take the matchup over the Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes, 444 to 284. Southwest Kansas was our lowest scorer on the week with just that 284, and you see it in all of their statistics. They only recorded 7 starts on the week, so that is certainly something. Obviously, 3 starts missing there. You saw that in the innings pitched, just 42 innings pitched on the week for Southwest Kansas. So not only did they not have a lot of guys go, but the guys that did go, outside of Noah Cameron, of course, didn't really pitch that many innings. So that certainly hurt their chances there. And honestly, things went pretty well for Arizona, particularly on the hitting side where they led in home runs, RBIs, walks, total bases, and extra base hits. So a lot of those really key categories. 214 batter points on the week for Arizona. Mickey Moniak looks to be coming back in form. He had a strong 26 points on the week. And Liam Hicks in his first week out in Tampa Bay seems to be enjoying his new environment with 31 over there. Michael Busch with 36 was one of the premier batters, the best batter, for Southwest Kansas in overall what was a slower week for them. Arizona picked up that important win, obviously, and we'll talk, later about why that was maybe extra important that they picked that one up this week. Matchup number 2 is the Bronx Bandoleros, who took on the Fenton Melonheads. Fenton entering the week at 11-7 in a playoff spot, looking to continue holding on to that space as the Valley let's see. Doing this on my own. Yeah, pardon me. The Valley was the Valley was tied with them along with the North Pole Natty Bows. So obviously 3 teams tied there. Important for Fenton to keep that score going. They did score 14 to open the week, but they led by over 30. Now, how could that possibly be, Zang? Not the Monday you want to see from the Bandoleros. Well, where James he's at. As he said, tank commanding is not the worst thing in the world. Cam Schlittler recorded 0 points, and Angel Chivili, I think it is Chivili, minus 21 for the Yankees relief pitcher. So not a good start to the week, putting the Bandoleros in a minus 21 hole to begin things off. They did score 65 on the next day, 32 of them coming from Ryan Weathers to dig themselves out of that hole more than a little bit, while Sean Manaea recorded 21 and Hayden Wesneski put up 25 for Fenton to hold their lead. Same would be true on Wednesday, as the Melonheads got 10 from Javi Baez and 16 from Matt Olson, while Michael Harris had 14 and Ronald Acuna tied up the Braves duo with 18. Friday was a bit of an interesting day for both teams. Roki Sasaki had a strong 23 points, for the Bandoleros as they scored 54 total. That would not be enough to quite overtake the Melonheads, and Angel Martinez's 17 points left on the bench certainly didn't help that cause. Kyle Stowers had 10 for the Melonheads, contributing to their 97 in total, but -1 from Robbie Ray and -2 from Shane Drowan definitely had things feeling like they maybe could have been a little bit better pitching-wise on that day in Fenton on Friday. Saturday saw another bench blunder from the Bandoleros as they left 13 points on the bench with Jackson Holiday, but that's easier to swallow when you get 23 from Jack Caglione, who has really turned things on in the second half. A couple of disappointing pitching performances from the Bronx this time. 6 points from Chase Burns, a little bit lower than we expect from him, and a -6 from Walbert Urania. That one definitely hurts. On the other side, not great with Matthew Liberatore either, -2 for him, but Michael King's 30 contributed to the 60 total points scored by Fenton as they held the lead they'd established through Monday. And the Melonhead said no pitcher points on Sunday, no problem. We'll get 2 Schwarbombs for 25 points, along with 12 from J.J. Weatherholt to seal the wire-to-wire win. Cam Schlittler did put up 37 on Sunday to bring the Bandoleros score up just a little bit, but it would not be quite enough as the Fenton Melonheads would take the matchup from them 412 to 337. Fenton was our lowest, fewest points in a win, with that 412. So they did have the lowest score of a winner this week. But they outpaced in pretty much all hitting categories. 233 hitting points on the week for Fenton was definitely what you want to see. Weatherholt, again, continuing to kind of heat back up after that sort of mid-season slump there. 37 points on the week for him, 36 for Matt Olson, and Kyle Schwarber with 29 points on the week. It is kind of funny to see him get 25 on Sunday, so just for the rest of the week, but that is the Kyle Schwarber experience, as we know. 33 from Carson Benj as well. Want to shout him out. Not so great on the quality side, though, from a pitching standpoint in Fenton. They allowed more earned runs, a lot more hits, close to 30 more hits, and issued close to 15 more walks than the Bandoleros. So Bronx did a good job at limiting those things, although it was in about 20 fewer innings. So in the end, some of it does come down to that. The Bronx, similar to Southwest Kansas, they only had 7 starts on the week. Fenton had 13. At the end of the day, unfortunately, it can sometimes come down to how your pitching lines up. And, you know, if you don't have a couple guys going on Sunday and maybe you have a lot going on Saturday, so you need to limit some of those starts earlier in the week, you can end up with a bit of a rough start there. And it seems like it was just sort of one of those weeks in the Bronx. But both teams will be moving forward. The Melonheads taking that important win and further securing their spot in the playoffs. North Pole Natty Bows took on the Joinville-friendly Capybaras. Joinville took the lead on 47 points on Monday, 11 of them coming from Jonathan Aranda. But they would quickly surrender that lead to the North Pole as they scored 114 points on Tuesday, 10 from Willie Castro and 20 from Brady Singer. Freddie Peralta continued the trend of poor first starts after the trade deadline, -7 on the day for him. I know we were all hoping for a little bit better out of fastball Freddie, although it was in Coors, so, for such a fastball-heavy guy like that, maybe we can hope for a little bit better in his next turn through the rotation. Shohei Ohtani had 16 points on Wednesday for the Natty Bows as they continued to hold their lead that they established the day before. Eric Lauer had -10 for the Capybaras. They scored only 24 points on the day. Reed Detmers with only 5. So disappointing pitching day for the Capybaras on Wednesday. Kevin McGonigal had 13 for the Natty Bows on Thursday as they scored 40 points. Ronher Suarez only had 2 points for the Capybaras in another somewhat disappointing pitching performance. But they started back on the positive on Friday as Logan Gilbert put up 20 points in Joinville. Nolan Chanuel putting up 11 as well. Would have been a great day with 78 for Joinville had the North Pole not scored 136 to further extend their lead. Came largely from a trio of starters, 20 from Kyle Leahy, 29 from Kevin Gosman, who did buck that first start in new uniform trend a little bit, and 36 from Shane Boz. I'm sure Boz appreciated that after what was probably a bit of a tough week emotionally. They extended their lead even further with another 100-plus day, 106 points on Saturday, 13 from Corey Seager, 20 from Josh Naylor, and 21 from Kyle Bradish. Another strong Baltimore start there, while Ivan Herrera and Jackson Merrill each put up 10 points for the Capybaras. Jackson Merrill would show up again on Sunday, putting up 9 points in Joinville, but Matthew Boyd's 26 en route to the third straight 100-plus day would comfortably give North Pole the win as they held their spot in the playoffs and took an important win heading into a very exciting matchup next week. The North Pole and Natty Bows did take the matchup 569 to 367, 202 points separating the teams. And as you would expect, that was our biggest blowout of the week. Start back on the topic again of starts. North Pole had 12 starts, Joinville just 9. Now, of course, 3 starts it probably doesn't make up for all that difference. A lot of it comes in the volume. Joinville with 57 innings pitched. North Pole with 89 innings pitched. Joinville with 59 Ks. North Pole with 76 Ks. Interestingly enough, again, on those counting stats, things like losses, earned runs, hits, they were lower on Joinville's side, but some of that does come from just a lower volume in terms of those starts overall. We also saw North Pole lead in home runs with 9, RBIs with 34, walks with 31, and total bases with 104. So again, all those key categories you want to see, North Pole did a good job leading in them. 249 batter points on the week for them. Things stayed true with this team. It's always kind of the same story. They don't have those huge standout batters. Highest scorer of the week was Luis Arias, who did have a strong week. Batters seem to have a better first weeks on their new teams than pitchers did. 32 points, as I said, for Arias in Philly now. But it's just a ton of guys over 20 points. That's exactly what you want to see from the North Pole, and that system has clearly worked very well for them, along with a collection of some really nice pitching performances. 320 points from the pitchers on them this week, as they definitely carried there. Sault Ste. Marie Locks took on the Cuyahoga Black Panthers, 2 teams nearer to the bottom, but the interesting little wrinkle here, of course, obviously you would imagine 2 teams near the bottom at this point of the season, maybe wouldn't mind a loss too much. However, neither one of these teams has their own first-round pick. Fenton has Sault Ste. Marie's pick in this upcoming draft, and Sault Ste. Marie actually has Cuyahoga's pick. So a win against Cuyahoga would actually be good for Sault Ste. Marie. So they were sort of backwards thinking for what you would think of bottom of the standings teams at this time, actually really pushing for a win. Things did look promising to start the week off. 84 points for Sault Ste. Marie to open up the week. 12 from Ezekiel Duran and 23 from Andrew Alvarez. Ezekiel Duran had 14 on Tuesday as well, while JT Jin had 20. Grayson Rodriguez had 26, and Grant Holmes had 30, all en route to a 104-point day. Sault Ste. Marie held their lead. They would lose a little ground on Wednesday, scoring 44, as the Black Panthers scored 79. Pardon me. Black Panthers got 21 from Palante, 33 from Bryce Elder, while Dylan Dingler put up 10 points for the Locks. Sault Ste. Marie would hold that lead through Thursday as well, despite scoring just 24 points. They got another 13 from Dylan Dingler, but a minus 13 from Slade Saccone, which was not what they wanted to see. 23 from Andrew Abbott helped Cuyahoga on their 72-point day as they inched that gap closer, and they would close and overtake on Friday. 90 points to just 20 over on Sault Ste. Marie's side. Cuyahoga got 10 from Raphael Devers, 16 from Cam Smith, and 32 from Parker Messick, while minus 8 was the scoreline for Noah Schultz on Sault Ste. Marie's side. If it makes you feel any better, KJ, Carmen Mladzinski, who of course was the other person you were considering starting over Schultz, also got minus 8, and that one was actually because of his performance, not because his manager walked over the foul line 2 times in an inning. So, hey, you chose the right guy. Will Venable just had a little bit of a brain fart there. So that did unfortunately come back to bite the Locks a little bit with that minus 8. That definitely hurt on the day. Jackson Job's return to the big leagues and to our fantasy league came in the form of 26 points on Saturday for the Locks, while Gage Jump had 30 en route to extending Cuyahoga's lead. It was a close Friday, and despite no pitching points, Cuyahoga was able to pull things out. Pete Alonso had 25. That certainly helped en route to the victory. Luis Robert with 14 and Fernando Tatis with 13 also helped out, as that pair of outfielders totaled together to give them 71 points on the day, while just 67 points on the day for Sault Ste. Marie left them a little short. They did get 25 from Grant Holmes in his second strong start of the week, but Grayson Rodriguez disappointed a little bit in his second start with just 7 on the week. Cuyahoga did take the matchup over Sault Ste. Marie 454 to 422, 32 points separating those two teams. And Cuyahoga maintains their spot a little bit above. And without your first round pick, hey, doesn't hurt to win just a little bit. For the first time, we do have a best batter, potent pitcher. We didn't have any of those in the first few, although a few superlatives that helped out. Number 5 potent pitcher, Grant Holmes on Sault Ste. Marie, had 55 points on the week to help him en route to that little award there. So certainly nice to see. Honestly, not too much to discuss. Both teams were pretty close in terms of most things. Just 2 more innings pitched for Sault Ste. Marie, but they were about 20 points lower in total pitching points scored. So the quality wasn't quite there. They allowed 10 more earned runs, issued 10 more walks, lost 2 more games, and won 1 fewer than Cuyahoga. So the quality there did suffer just a bit. Cuyahoga did win out on the hitting side as well, 196 for them, 184 for the Locks. But of course, always nice to see Dylan Dingler. What a campaign. He's had 41 points on the week. He has continued to just be fantastic for Sault Ste. Marie. Claimed during the it was either during the expansion draft or the supplemental draft. I can't see off the top of my head right now, unfortunately. I just see that it was claimed for free, so I do know that it was from one of those. February 10th was our expansion draft, so I believe it was during the expansion draft he grabbed Dingler. Actually dropped him on March 24th, picked him back up on the 30th, and has not looked back. Dingler has just been fantastic for him. So that is, of course, a nice little bright spot for the Locks. The Seoul Sovereigns took on the St. Petersburg Tropopologists in what was certainly our most dramatic matchup of the week. Seoul did take the lead on Monday by 8 points, scoring 58 to just 50. Over on the other side, Ian Seymour had 28 points for the Sovereigns, while Seiya Suzuki put up 13, and Junior Caminero put up 18 for St. Petersburg. Nico Horner showed out with 13 points, while Troy Melton had 34 on Tuesday. As the Sovereigns scored 89, but it would not be enough to hold that lead, as St. Petersburg would score 108, 20 from Tarek Skubal in his first start in Dodger Blue, and 28 from Logan Henderson. As I said, all en route to 108 points and the first 100 plus of the matchup. The Sovereigns would not quite be able to pull the lead back despite scoring 127 on Wednesday. Shota Imanaga had 19, Nick Martinez had 24, but for St. Petersburg, Hunter Brown had 24 and Trevor Rogers had 32, all en route to 117 points, their second straight 100-plus point day, and enough to hold the lead for them. Ildemaro Vargas was left on the bench with 14 points there, and unfortunately would end up being dropped the next day as his spot in St. Petersburg's lineup just wasn't quite there anymore. Zach Neto had 12 for the Tropopologists on Thursday, and a smart sit. That's a new segment. This is a great chance to introduce it. You might have noticed I'm doing bench blunders a little bit differently now. I've actually incorporated them into the matchup minute. I felt it was a little more natural, told the story of the week a bit better. So you'll hear me calling those out. And it's also introducing a new kind of superlative, the smart sit. That is when you, of course, sit typically a pitcher, and it was a good choice. We've got our first smart sit of the matchup here. Braxton Ashcraft put up just 7 points in what would have cost St. Petersburg a start there. So nice work sitting him there, as St. Petersburg did hold that lead. Same will be true on Friday. Just 20 points scored by the Sovereigns, half of them coming from Geraldo Perdomo, while Dalen Lyle had 13 and Cade Cavalli had 21 for the Tropopologists. St. Petersburg scored 55 on Saturday, while Seoul scored 68, inching the gap just that little bit closer. For the Sovereigns, Cole Carey had 11 and Xavier Edwards had 12. The doors opened just a little bit by Clay Holmes, who had a -2 on the day, continuing that trend. Poor first starts for pitchers after being traded, but Jake McCarthy said, "I'll be the pitcher in this relationship, honey," and put up 23 points on the day for the Tropopologists, totaling adding on to that 55 total that I mentioned. Coming into the final day, Seoul exploded for 96 points, 28 from Troy Melton, 29 from Ian Seymour, and just 4 points from Emerson Hancock left it feeling like the door was potentially open for Seoul to mount a last-minute comeback. They did have Ty France in Sunday Night Baseball along with Stephen Okert, but France was only able to record 1.2, and it would not be enough as the St. Petersburg Tropopologists go Tuesday to Sunday, taking a win from the Seoul Sovereigns by just 2.2 points, 493.9 to 491.7. Obviously, let's start with this. Really tough loss for the Sovereigns. They entered the week tied with the Washington State winners for second place, so they have now ceded control of that position, and obviously we know first and second place do get those byes, so Intent does now need to count on losses from either the Portland Pioneers or Washington State winners, along with winning out for himself to have a chance at catching that bye. So unfortunately, this does not bode so well for the Sovereigns' playoff picture. I'm sure they'll be fine in that first round. One would imagine they will be, but obviously you love to have that bye. A lot of best batters and potent pitchers in this one. Troy Melton, number 3 on the best batters list with 62. On the potent pitchers list. Ian Seymour also on that potent pitchers list at number 4 with 57. And Jake McCarthy for the Tropopologists had 49 points as the number 1 best batter. Who would have thought? As you all would imagine, of course, 2.2. This was the narrowest win. With these super narrow wins, you've always got to say it. Stat corrections have until Wednesday, so I'm sure we will be keeping a close eye there. It does not take a lot for that to flip. So, whether errors get changed into hits, no all those sort of little things can change and go back, and ultimately, that could end up flipping this matchup. Seoul really outpaced on the pitching department, 314 to 247. You saw that in their volume, 74 innings pitched to 71. They had more Ks, more wins, fewer losses, fewer earned runs, fewer walks, more saves, and more holds than the Tropopologists. But St. Petersburg kind of had the flip side when it came to bats. 246 batter points for them, 177 for the Sovereigns. St. Petersburg had just 3 more at-bats, but led in hits, runs, home runs, RBI, walks, strikeouts, total bases, extra base hits, and outfield assists. I'll throw that in there too, because they did lead in that. So really a strong week for those St. Petersburg batters. Nice sign for Flaming Prius. Obviously, it's you want to look for positive signs moving to the future. We've talked about how strong that pitching staff is. Obviously hoping for better years out of guys like Skeens and Skubal, which I think we can pretty comfortably expect next year. You can count on that pitching staff kind of being something like what it was last year. But if you get batter performances like this week, all of a sudden we are looking at a team that could pretty comfortably put themselves back into the top sort of contention again. Pretty shocking stat. Just 3 points recorded for Vladimir Guerrero on the week. Seemed like he was sat a little bit and then had quite a few negatives. So he has unfortunately not put up the strongest year. 381 points for him there. Only 7 home runs. OPSing under 700. Just hasn't quite looked like the Vlad we saw last year. That's something contributing as well. Important matchup next week for Seoul. We'll get onto that one in just a little bit. But before we do, we have 2 more matchups. Washington State Winners is our 6th matchup. They took on the Arctic Real Survivors. Alec Burleson got things started out with a bang for Washington State, scoring 27 points on Monday, making up for a large portion of that 48 total scored by the Winners. Trent Grisham had 11 and Shane Bieber 19 for the Real Survivors. Bubba Chandler's 19 were left on the bench. You could go either way with that. That's not a great start, but 19 points never hurts either. On Tuesday, however, the Arctic Real Survivors would explode for 153 points and take over the lead in the matchup. They got 11 points from New Yankee shortstop George Lombard, 18 from the Durbinator Caleb Durbin, 26 from Mackenzie Gore, and 40 from Jesus Luzardo. Washington State got 12 from Manny Machado and only 8 from Joey Cantillo out in Cleveland. Washington State would punch right back on Wednesday, though, retaking the lead on a 128-point day. 16 came from C.J. Abrams, 21 from Pete Crow Armstrong, and 33 from Brian Wu. On the other side, Altuve did have 10 points for the Real Survivors, but Casey Mize, say it with me, folks, bad first start in a new uniform, minus 17 in his Padres debut was not what San Diego or the Arctic wanted to see in that first start. Sal Stewart had 11 and Framber Valdez 33 en route to 97 points total for the Washington State Winners on Thursday as they held that lead. Alex Bregman had 12 for the Real Survivors. And on Friday, Zach Thornton had 20 and Max Fried 31 as the Arctic would score 92 points. However, 20 points from Gavin Williams and 26 from Jacob deGrom contributed to 101 total for Washington State as they extended their lead. They would do the same on Saturday with 102 points, besting yesterday's total by a point. This time, I'm so sorry. I apologize. This was the Gavin Williams and deGrom day. On Friday, just 4 points from Zach Wheelers, but 5 relief pitchers through for Washington State. That was something that stood out to me, all between 6 and 9 points there. So that obviously added up to that big total. Gavin Williams with 20, deGrom with 26, as I mentioned, for Washington State en route to that 102-point day. 76 for the Real Survivors, another 10 from George Lombard. And on Sunday, Washington State would close out the win. Alec Burleson, another 10, and Jake Bowers with 12. It was, however, a strong day for the Real Survivors. They scored 125 points, 10 from Hunter Goodman, 35 from Jesus Luzardo, and 31 from Logan Webb in his strong first start in the Arctic. Washington State did end up taking the matchup, as I mentioned, 632 to 552. 80 points separating the team. Washington State was the highest scorer this week with that 632 points. Let's quickly talk over best batters, potent pitchers. This matchup had a lot of them. Pico Armstrong, number 3 best batter for the Washington State winners with 44 points. They had the number 4 best batter, Alec Burleson, with 43 points. And they had the number 5 best batter, Bryson Stott, with also 43 points, just decimals separating him and the Cardinals first baseman there. 2 potent pitchers for the real survivors. Number 1 in Jesus Luzardo with 75, and number 2 in Logan Webb with 64 points. However, only 31 of those did come with the real survivors, as he was moved on deadline day over to the real survivors from the Valley Gift Lords. As you can imagine, based on those 3 best batters, Washington State dominated on the hitting side. 314 points for them, just 188 for the real survivors. It's really where the matchup was won. Both teams had over 300 on the pitching side, so strong pitching performances from both teams. The real survivors had 13 starts. Washington State right at the limit at 10. So the real survivors did lead a little bit in that volume, 98 innings pitched to 71. And they had more Ks, more wins, but unfortunately more losses, earned runs, hits allowed, walks, and blown saves. So they did suffer a little bit from that volume. A few guys who got knocked around a little bit. Of course, those 8 earned runs from Casey Mize, makes up for quite a bit. That was really not the start I think anyone was hoping to see in his first turn through San Diego's rotation. Just on the hitting side for Washington State, they led in pretty much every category imaginable. The only thing on the negative side for them was strikeouts. They had 8 more strikeouts than the real survivors. But other than that, in every single hitting category, they either led or tied. So Washington State's bats continuing to do what they have done all year long, and that is fucking mash. And, it is a little bit Washington State that they would have Bryson Stott and, PCA is a big name, but, Stott, Burleson, and these guys just showing out. They've done so well. So Washington State takes that important win, obviously capitalizing on the loss from the Sovereigns and taking sole possession of second place. We'll get to those standings in just a minute, but before we do, let's talk about our headlining matchup of the week. This was the Valley Gift Lords taking on the Portland Pioneers. Valley Gift Lords entered the week tied with the Melonheads and the North Pole Natty Bows, tied in record for 4th place, but they did enter in 6th place as the 3rd ranked team in terms. They entered in 5th place. They were ahead of Fenton in terms of total points scored. Obviously looking to continue that streak of theirs and more comfortably secure a spot in the playoffs. They certainly started the way you would want to see them start. 118 points for the Valley on Monday. It did give them a comfortable lead over just 24 from Portland. The Pioneers did get a solid spot start from Cal Quantrill, which they were hoping for, but -8 from Justin Robleski brought things down a little bit, while on the other side, Jung-Hoo Lee balled out with 19, Brandon Fott had 31, and Logan Webb had 33, what would end up being his final start in the Valley. The Gift Lords held their lead, scoring 58 on Tuesday. Bayo had 19 points in relief, while the Pioneers did start to claw back in with some strong hitting performances. Riley Green had 10, Jackson Churio had 12, and Wheeler Abreu had 17. The Valley held their lead again through Wednesday, scoring 102, 13 from Julio Rodriguez, newly acquired, 20 from Tanner Bybee, 32 from Kyle Harrison in his return, and just 6 from Sean Burke. Unfortunately, as Boston did knock him around a little bit. Part of that came from Wheeler Abreu, who had another 13 points on the day, and Burke did face off, taking the loss against Sonny Gray, who benefited from those 3 points, scoring 33 in total. On Thursday, the Gift Lords scored 75 points, 21 of them coming from Chase Mydroth, but 116 would pull things within single digits for the Pioneers. They didn't have any standout batter, but interestingly enough, every batter on the team had more than 2 points on the day. So all below 10, but all more than 2. So really strong batting day on Friday for the Pioneers. On Thursday. 39 from Dylan Cease certainly doesn't help either. Portland would finally take over that lead that they had been inching closer to over the last 3 days. They scored 147 on Friday. Off of a trio of strong performances. 2 Red Sox, 10 from Wheeler Abreu, 39 from Drew Rasmussen, and 40 from Peyton Tolley in that 14 strikeout performance of his. Stephen Kwan had 11 points on Friday, but it would not be quite enough for the Valley to hold their lead. 20 points left on the bench in Merrill Kelly. He was, of course, sat to make the starts work there, but it didn't totally work out how look, 20 points is left on the bench. I'm just going to shout that out. I can't get too managey, but we'll shout it out. Back into the rhythm. The Valley took their lead right back on Saturday as Bubba Chandler finally learned to throw strikes against their former employer, the Portland Pioneers, putting up 32 points, while just 5 from Robert Gasser kept Portland's total lower on the day, scoring just 81. They did get 11 from Bryce Strang and 39 from Sandy Alcantara. However, Portland, and I'm sorry, I'm a little herky-jerky on this one. Portland did show out strong on Sunday, scoring 82 points to 48 on the Valley's side. Portland scoring came on 11 from Jackson Churio, 18 from Bo Bichette, and 18 from Randy Vasquez. Justin Robleski, another disappointing start for them, minus 2 points. But what really ended up sinking the Gift Lords was the minus 15 from Jared Jones. They did get 11 from Colson Montgomery, but that minus 15 from a starting pitcher you're expecting obviously strong points out of. 27 points ended up separating them at the end of the week, 582 to 555. So just the way I think about things, Jones, you figure even on a mediocre start, he's getting 15 points there. 15 points for a start, plus, the 15 that they lost in the minus. It does make up the difference there. So unfortunately, that Jared Jones start did end up sinking the week for the Gift Lords, as they would lose to the Portland Pioneers 582 to 555. A strong week for the Valley. Nonetheless, it was the most points in a loss with that 555. They had a member of the potent pitchers list, Logan Webb, with those 64 we mentioned from before. 33 of them did come with the Valley. And the Portland Pioneers had a member of the best bats list. Number 2 on the list, Wheeler Abreu with 49 points.
The best experience that I ever had.
It was the best experience that I ever had, Wheeler. I agree. Let's move on down to the standing segment. The Portland Pioneers have clinched a playoff spot in sole possession of first place at 15-4. Also having clinched a playoff spot, the Washington State Winners at 14-5, now in sole possession of second place. Soul Sovereigns are in sole possession of third at 13-6. And the North Pole Natty Bows and Fenton Melonheads are tied for in record at 12-7 in 4th and 5th place, respectively. The Valley Gift Lords sit in 6th place, currently inside the playoffs at 11-8. The Asphalt share that record of 11-8, but are currently outside the playoffs, trailing the Gift Lords by about 200 points on the season. The Arctic Real Survivors season is officially over in terms of playoffs. At 11-8, the Real Survivors, St. Petersburg Tropopologists, and Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes have joined the teams below them in officially being eliminated from playoff contention. Arctic in 8th place, St. Petersburg in 9th, and Southwest Kansas in 10th. The Bandoleros are in 11th place at 7-12. Cuyahoga Black Panthers also at 7-12 in 12th place. Joinville Friendly Capybaras at 4-15 in 13th place, and the Sault Ste. Marie Locks in the basement at 3-16. That is the standing segment for the week. I do want to talk over something kind of fun that I found out. Well, actually, I'm going to say that for the end. I'll do that after claims and stuff. I want to talk about playoffs real quick. Just a few reminders about the playoff format. So the top 2 teams in terms of the top 2 teams at the end of the season do get a bye through the first round. The 3 and the 6 seed will face off against each other. The winner of that matchup will take on the 2nd seed, and the 5 and the 4 face off against one another. The winner of that matchup takes on the 1 seed in round 2 of the playoffs. So first round of the playoffs, of course, we will have the let's do my math. The 8 eliminated teams will be off for the week, along with the top 2 teams. So just those 4 teams in spots 3 through 6 will be playing that week. And from then on, it'll be 2 matchups the next week as well, and then just that 1 matchup the final week. So just wanted to shout that out, remind people that, those top 2 spots do matter, and Seoul does still have a chance at potentially getting one of those if either Portland, they could they could take Washington State's spot if Seoul were to win the next 2 and Washington State were to lose in the next 2. So, definitely hoping for a couple of tough weeks from Mike. Quickly, we'll talk over the claims corner. Hayden Wisniewski went for $17 to the Fenton Melonheads. Eric Miller for $9 to Fenton as well. St. Petersburg Tropopologist got Paul Blackburn for $14. Cal Quantrill went for $35 to the Pioneers. George Springer went for $10 to the North Pole. On Thursday, Jansen Junk went for $9 to the Washington State Winners. Randy Vasquez went for $35 to Portland, beating out a $1 bid from their opponent, the Valley Gift Lords. Justin Slayton went for $17 to St. Petersburg. Dominic Canzone went for $125 to Joinville, just narrowly beating out that $1 bid from Southwest Kansas. And Dean Kramer, I know it's Kramer even though it's spelled Kramer. Dean Kramer did go for $125 also to Joinville. So Hideki definitely burning down that remaining fob that he's got. Something I did just want to talk about. I was looking through the season stats page. If you click on standings and then go to season stats, I have to admit I never looked through this page all that much. There's some really interesting stuff in here. It shows every leader. Leaders in every scoring category on the season. So obviously total points in terms of pitching and hitting, but then also just some kind of cool things in terms of the actual stats themselves. So with just me here this week, I thought it might be fun to kind of touch on a couple of those. Leading the entire league in hitting with 5,033 points is the North Pole Natty Bows. We know they get that massive boost from Shohei being kind of that extra batter. About 50 points behind them, a little over 50 points, closer to 80, are the Washington State Winners with 4,969. And Portland Pioneers league leader in 7th place. The one that really surprised me, Portland is actually the leader in terms of fantasy points for pitching, 5,278 on the year. I just thought that was fascinating. I would not have picked myself as the league leader in pitching points. What shocked me even a little bit more was the Valley Gift Lords. They showed the hell out, man. 5,260. Look, I have been critical of Al Martinet's. I was critical of Al Martinet's pitching entering the year. Clearly, it worked out as they are second place in all pitching points, ahead of even the Winners there. And you see that a little bit when you go down to the, some of the more reliever-specific categories. When you look at saves, second place is Fenton Melonheads with 88. The Gift Lords have 110 saves on the season for 550 total, 110 points ahead of the next leader. So that certainly makes up for things. Real Survivors led in holds. I thought that was interesting. They have 400 points on 100 holds. Pioneers in second place, 85 holds for 340 points. What was the other one that I wanted to shout out? I know they're here. Oh, that's what it was. The Washington State Winners, 260 doubles on the season. That really, I think, represents Washington State's hitting philosophy. It's a lot of those gap-to-gap double guys. Fenton, unsurprisingly, leads in home runs, 227 on the season. With guys like Olsen and Schwarber and Jordan, it's certainly not surprising to see them all there. In terms of hits, I think it was... what was it that they led in? I saw a pretty cool Sault Ste. Marie stat. We've just, I've obviously talked about kind of what KJ's method for kind of putting a team together was. Not double plays. That's not sacrifice hits. Oh, I'm so sorry. This is terrible podcast. If I don't find it in a quick scroll, I will ignore. That's what it was. Fewest strikeouts on the season. KJ has talked a lot about, wanting guys who limit the strikeouts, put the balls in play. Just 946 strikeouts on the season for his batters, the only person under 1,000. And interestingly enough, Portland is dead last on the list, 1,300 on the dot for strikeouts. So kind of a lot of swing and miss in Portland, which again, I just thought those were really interesting. I would encourage everyone, you just click on the standings tab, and then it's the third tab at the top, season stats. It's really interesting to go through and just kind of look over things as we've got more of this data. So I'm sure you'll find some cool things in there as you dig through with your own eyes. But I just wanted to shout those out. I thought it was kind of fun to see that stuff and look into the story of the season a little bit there. All right, let's talk over next week's notes. It was week number 20 coming up, 2 weeks to go. So week number 20 and week number 21. So we were coming right down to the wire. Joinville friendly Capybaras and Sault Ste. Marie Locks do face off in a battle of the bottom. Joinville at 4-15, Sault Ste. Marie at 3-16. Those two teams facing off against one another. Joinville does have the record in terms of points scored on the season. Let's quickly take a look. Yeah, they're a decent amount ahead of Sault Ste. Marie. So Sault Ste. Marie does look safe for that final spot, even if they were to tie them up. It should be a fun one to watch. The Seoul Sovereigns at 13-6 take on the Bandoleros at 7-12. Seoul obviously looking for a win, as I mentioned. A loss would sort of tie them with the North Pole and Fenton group. But a win potentially puts them in a position, if the Washington State winners were potentially to take a loss, to take that spot over from them. So Seoul will definitely be looking for that. In a pretty interesting little bit of fantasy gods cooking, Seoul faces off against the North Pole Natty Bows in their final week. So that should be a really interesting matchup. Two teams that will either be very close in record, or potentially could even be tied in record. So I'm certainly excited to see how that one comes out. Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes take on the Valley Gift Lords. The Valley at 11-8 and Southwest Kansas at 8-11. The Gift Lords will take on expansion franchise Arctic Real Survivors in the final week. So they've got Southwest Kansas this week and the Real Survivors in the final week. I do believe the Valley would need to win out to maintain their playoff spot. I guess unless Arizona stays with them. Sorry, I'm doing some of this math live. So Gift Lords and Arizona are tied in record. So as long as they stay tied in record with Arizona and maintain the lead in terms of points, they should be fine. But winning out would certainly secure them that spot in the playoffs. St. Petersburg Tropopologists take on the Washington State winners in a rematch of last year's finals. St. Petersburg at 8-11, Washington State at 14-5. Portland Pioneers take on the Cuyahoga Black Panthers. Portland at 15-4, Cuyahoga at 7-12. Washington State and Portland each looking to more firmly secure their spot in those top two. With a win this week, Portland does clinch a bye in the first round. However, they cannot clinch the top seed unless they win out. So they do need 2 wins. Washington State is quite a bit ahead of me in terms of total points on the season. So if Mike were to win out and I were to win one and lose one, Washington State would take that final spot. Arctic Real Survivors take on the Arizona Asphalt with inverse records. Arctic Real Survivors at 8-11, Arizona at 11-8. In the final week, Arizona will be facing off against the Washington State winners. So it is a bit of an uphill battle here for the Arizona Asphalt. They do need to win against the Real Survivors, which we know are a scrappy team here. And then they will need to take on the defending champs to have a chance at getting into the playoffs on that final week. A loss either week from the Gift Lords would certainly help their chances of sneaking in, and Ace is sure to be looking for some high-scoring matchups to potentially look at closing that gap. As of right now, the Gift Lords have 9,404 points on the season, and Arizona has 9,235. So they're, 180-ish behind them, 170-ish. I'm sorry, I'm doing a lot of quick math on the fly. Not totally insurmountable, but, both of those teams, the Valley and Arizona, points are going to be at a premium for them. So they're definitely going to be looking to run up the tally a little bit. our headliner for the week, I could not be more excited about this one. Fenton Melonheads at 12-7, facing off against the North Pole Natty Bows at 12-7. This is about as good as it gets 2 weeks from the finish. Fenton and North Pole are tied, obviously, in record in 4th and 5th place. So the winner of this matchup takes over sole possession of 4th place, of course, unless the Sovereigns were to lose this week, in which case they would be tied with them. But I believe both of these teams, let me take a quick check. Yes, both of these teams are above the Sovereigns. So, outside of, they have the lead over the Sovereigns in terms of points. They were over 1,000 ahead of them as of not over 1,000, but like three. I'm not going to do math on the pod. I'm sorry. They're way ahead. Whoever wins this matchup takes 4th place. Let's just say that. So that is obviously important here. And that does, unless I am mistaken, secure them a spot in the playoffs. So this is a win and get in for these two. Taking a look at their matchups in the final week, Fenton faces Sault Ste. Marie in the final week, and the North Pole Natty Bows face the Seoul Sovereigns, as I mentioned. So I would say this is probably a more important matchup for North Pole to take this win and secure that spot in the playoffs. Seoul, obviously, a much more challenging opponent, and if the Natty Bows were able to win this matchup and Seoul Sovereigns were to lose, they would be tied in record, which would then mean whichever team wins that gets 3rd place, and even better there, a chance at that 6th seed. So really interesting stuff, really exciting matchups. I can't wait to watch this Fenton North Pole one. It'll also be just interesting to keep an eye on the total scores for Arizona and Gift Lords. The more each of those teams can run it up, the better for them, as they are pretty close in terms of records there. That is all I have got for you this week. Thanks for sticking with me. I'm excited for week 21, our penultimate week, the second to last matchup before we hit playoff time. I'm really excited for the playoffs. Those pods were so fun last year, and it was a lot of fun to follow along. Sunday Night Baseball in particular, I have some pretty great memories, kind of keeping an eye out and doing the math. Oh, if whoever gets a hit here, that's worth 2 points, and that's enough. It's just super fun. So that is all coming up. Thank you for staying with me, listening along. Good luck this week, and have a good one, everyone.
You know what that makes you? Larry?
Lollygag.
Lolly.